Hello, I'm back again for quotes. So quotes of hobbies. We're doing about a special occasion today. I'm back again, just like in the commercials today. We're doing it about explanation points. So we're gonna do that for storylines for permissions, storylines for permissions. All these concerns are about for quotations. We're doing about quotes of hobbies number 5. So we're doing this about quotes of hobbies, page number 5. So we're doing about thinking about the evolution here. Since about Frankie's. So Frankie's moved in the downstairs of my room since it was 2009. So I usually quote. I usually about quotes and hobbies. I just learn about talk to the socializations. I just recognize where we just have about for great times of the issues. Um, so we're doing the talk about all this time for about the gentleman here. So I basically would just leapt into my bed over there, just the wood ones. Maybe the old ones could be about the broken ones, and I just literally for about the wooden beds in it. And since my dad just went to about separated for since my brother's bedroom since in my room. So I usually do have about my old bed is wooden, so wooden bedrooms. Um, so basically Frankie's wooden beds wasn't about downstairs to den was and normal ones. I usually they have terrifying and horrible, just like my mom did for about any time for about the matter what it takes. My mom usually about she freaks out at any time she kind of liked about interestingly she doesn't like horrible messing up for his bedroom for the dens. Even that time I usually about going off on the computer to play as about Return to the Castle Wolfenstein, just like others about the Two Towers and the Return of the King. And I used to have I was in about 7th grade. So I was been discovered since Frankie was on Emerald Ridge High School since he was in the 10th grade. He usually for about told a couple of things about for breakfast for his lunch and his friends, and then I usually for about seems to be Chris Senior for his entire opportunity for my cousin Chris. I usually for about Justin, he's in the 10th grade. He usually for about from 2009 and 2010 school years. So I basically do have Mr. Layson and Mrs. Baxter and Mr. Spicer and Miss Loran and Mrs. Davis, Mr. Spears, Mrs. Horn, and then they do have all the staffs and the teachers of staff, all the staff of the teachers of Fuji, and including for about footballs and cross countries. They have the girls runners, and I usually do have about wrestlings of basketballs and soccers and track and fields, and then I usually do have for about all the observation of about some spend nights for about 5 days in the schools. I used to walk to school to walk to the house and here. I was basically for about her entire schools for about I was in about 8th grade. So I've been done with 7th grade for about 2008 to 2009 school years. I was been at entire opportunities. I was due to about apologetic for about Mrs. Loran, then Mrs. Daniel, Mrs. Rodolph, then Mrs. Welch, and then it included herself throwing up for temper tantrum. So I would never throw back a temper tantrum for about thousands of times. So I don't feel like to swallow the temper tantrum anytime. So just to be sure cool, just take a walk and take a jog as long as I can. Be healthy. Be my choice as long as once. Just like 5 days in exercise. I usually basically would just also about we work into for the reading groups for the first periods, second period science and designs, and math and mathematics. I usually for about the third period and fourth period I have lunch at PE and art. So I basically transition to the class and editing for the fifth grade and editing for fifth period, six periods, and my transitions about continuing for editing, though finishing homework. Or I usually did have spelling to do. I usually have computer labs. I was certainly the basically used about using the computers for the Miss Lorian's class. So I used to have the rumors about I was a bit there about Fuji class for interestingly for about 14 years ago. My storyline is about special observation and also about when I was served for about Mr. Coleman and Miss Loran for about special education teachers. I usually did have my friends who can't do exactly did. We were on not playing around for no recess around and we're just respected to each other, so we just do that for about all this about time. We're just some case we were just about working at some credits about the A grades. I do have listening to do about the Mrs. Davis for the art class. So I do have six A grades that do have successfully be good listeners. All this is the people do have about her entire to make earn the credits. That's what I do for. When I do about spelling, the editing, and math, and reading, and writing, as long as I were to do my homework and journal, I used to have volleyball-a-thon from 2010. Volleyball-a-thon is about 12 hours. It's good in it. So I usually rest about 5 hours. I do that for the great purpose. Kind of love volleyball for the first time and first ever since 2010 and 2011. Second time. So I do have paperwork to do. They do have it about so paperwork to do, sign in for paperwork to do, to fill in first, to turn in, and just go in there for a volleyball. So whatever you can. So you're free to welcome in there for about staying and hang out for 12 hours. That's pretty good in it. So 2010 and 2011 volleyball the school years for the first and second time. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good about total assistance. So we do that. We do great. Quotes and hobbies number 6. I usually did have about watching over about trilogies of the Pirates of the Caribbean. The first one is The Curse of the Black Pearl. I used about prologue here on decided for about Captain Jack Sparrow and Bootstrap Bill Turner. He's only marooned for about for 10 years ago since about since the reaction for about the 1710 centuries. I used to have 1700s, 1710s for the ADs. So Jack and Bootstrap was marooned and Barbosa took his ships to for Isla de Marta for the treasure of the Cortes. I usually the Pearl and the pirates and this guys just curse and the treasure of the Cortes, the medallion. I usually about for calls and about caused the wheel in for about the long time ago. I used to have the Black Pearl was cursed. I used to have the people of God, the people for soldiers. The pirates just kill all of the Spanish soldiers. I basically just beat down for the Spanish Empire, and like one of the just like knights and soldiers in it. I basically would just do that for about a whole entire age of the piracies of the 1700s. So 10 years straight. So 10 years later, since 1720s, and sometimes I used to have HMS Dauntless and the Port Royal. Elizabeth I was been young about last 10 years. The Will Tunners is from young. On all of that, this should be about entire movie for the Curse of the Black Pearl. Even Jack Sparrow decides to float her name for about the Port Royals, and besides for the charge and name for about the Mrs. Smith. Now, Jack's really unchargeable somewhat, as far as you're really concerned about taking the ship for the tour for HMS Interceptor. I use about watching over about reaction of the Fort Charles on for the British Royal Navy. I usually a lot of people for the island. I used it about Jamaica. I used it to Jamaica for about the British flag in it, and the medallion coins just about blowing up. I just heard of it about the wind is blowing. Eva Jack saved Elizabeth from drowning with his life. And Commodore and his lieutenant officers in his red coats. Jack was escapes was the red coat soldiers, the red coats and his soldiers, even just like known as British Revolutionary soldiers. And then Jack was running from the red coats. Then usually they have just escapes, and they do have Mr. Brown's workroom, and they do have about one animal here. They do have donkey. Even Will Turners they do have about sneaking in for Mr. Brown, and that's what he could. Will doesn't know Will doesn't know Jack is. He certainly sword fights. Then it is a probable once. He knocks out from Mr. Brown's door and he breaks it in, and then they capture Jack. And there was certainly night. That was the fog, and that was about the fog in the night for the water. Even the pearl was cursed, and the cursed pirates just a lot of men in those guys just cursed. They literally just about attacking the fortress. I usually for about the pirates that do have good, so unfortunately the Curse of the Black Pearls are used about the fortress that attack on Port Royal, and then one of the next characters as the Black Pearl just fled to kidnap for Elizabeth Swan. And I usually do have about entire first movie for the Pirates movie. That's a pretty good movie. So Battle of the Seas of Interceptor versus Black Pearl, and Battle at the Ile de Merta for the last time. So we do that's about the second movie called The Dead Man's Chest, and 9 years later, 1729, and the storm came. The ancient those guys are about doing the blue coats and the blue coats or the red coats. They're arriving for the Port Royal on Jamaica for the Fort Charles. Even though the East India Trading Company, led by Lord Cutler Beckett. I would certainly can be time as soon as possible. I usually have the 3 ships and about the Endeavors and Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman and his pet, the Kraken, and Tiandama, and he betrays his love, Davy Jones, and his characters was about from Blessed to the Curse. The Kraken was the Speculative Relations pet. He led by Davy Jones and is captain of a Flying Dutchman. He cursed the seas. He also thinks lots of them have no idea, just saying. He basically, Jack was at the Black Pearl, was at a Turkish prison in his escapes, and the Pelagos Island just about several days, and Elizabeth was escaped from EITC to sign in for endeavor traders, friendships, Frenchmanships, and so I basically was on Pelagosa Island was trapped for about the 2 days. I just watched action for about a touch of destiny for Teodama's discoveries for about their entire scuttle ships. And that's the one that could be about the Flying Dutchman during the storms coming. I usually for about the Herd Dutchman pirates, just about from human beings from nearby. Their entire guys is just about stranded. They were running the ground, like the Kraken just scuttled the ships, and besides on the reef, the Kraken lives on the rocky reefs. I usually for about the possibilities to meet the fear rivals, and then they arrive the Tortuga, and then the Whales joins in about Davy Jones's crew, and the Dice Games, and Beckon confronts to Governor Weatherby Swans and Mr. Mercer called Ian Mercer's. Even the Pearls just arrived to about the Illacruces and Endeavor Traders just about second attack. So I basically Kraken was on usually for about the movies called the Sea Monsters. I noticed since about entire worlds about this, so all this about for the reliability to same actions to about the third attack of a Kraken, all besides the confronting against the Black Pearl after the fight's over for about the Wheel of Fortunes, who they can. And the Dutchman and those guys, he's unfortunately confronting the Pearl, and his pet letting besides the sunk in the pearls, and that's a great movie for the second movie for the Pirates #2. It could be ends off about the post credit scenes about 30 months, about 20 seconds. That's a pretty good movie. So I usually do have about this year is the 1729 at World's End. I usually disguise about the citizens just about arrested for by EITC blue coats, and there were punishment hung around his neck. It do have about break his neck, and their bodies are thrown in for the wooden baskets, and the reason do have a sing those songs about the hoisted colors, and there was a sing those songs by the younger guy, and they arrived to the Singapore, and includes itself for the Singaporean pirates. There are Singaporean people, not for the Chinese pirates. I do have about observation when the EITC Blue Coast invades to the Singapore, they have 2 ships. They have about 3 ships, and they arrived just about observation to meeting Captain South Fane, and is impressively welcome. I too have told about this and about all these concerns about discovered. So even the Gibbs of this guy's sneaking that up there under on the Sirius. When the EITC invades South Fane's characters, it was so unimaginable. Even led by Mr. Mercer, just battle off and against Singaporean pirates and the blue coats. I used to do have about making escapes and victory outcome over about for the Hail Pain for the ships. I used at that time for about discovery characters about pirates fleets and the Flying Dutchman. They also do have about outcomes is coming to end about 1 minute about 5 seconds, and I usually about meetings today about the Frozens. I usually have all usually that way for about the 2 hours or 49 minutes ago. I was basically about 10 times in a day for about the third movie called At World's End. I used to do down there for about Davy Jones' Locker. I usually don't have it about for recognizing about don't have it in any of the Paradise. They have a rocks in there for the Black Pearl. They have a Stranded for the Jones Lockers. All I have to do is usually for about all is about rocks become crabs. They're carrying to the pearl into the sea all the way straight to about just like Salt Lake Plains. Yeah, even the Salt Lake Plains in it. It's just like all the others about Davy Jones' Locker, just like in the Utah Salt Lake Plains. They have about beach over the seas. After after the Singaporean ship, Hao Ping, he just about sunk down. He just fallen down the ships. Just whack it to the beach, whack it to the sand, and it just stranded. I was basically it's just about he came down here from Locker to the sea was sunrise. It's just green flash. I just realized I would have done this before, so since I noticed it's just I just been recognized and since one of the Black Sand Beach. So Davy Jones's pet was Kraken was resting place for the Kraken. He just ordered to buy Lord Cullerbecken for about Davy Jones's pet was on passed away for about a couple months ago. Unlikely to see monsters. Unlikely about see monsters was on resting place. As far as I don't want to. As far as the Kraken doesn't have any grave in it, it doesn't mean to blowing it up. So even the Empress meets the Pearl and confronting the endeavors for EITC's Blue Coats. I also do have about escape from endeavors, and including Empress, and then Flying Dutchman captures Empress, and escaping from Dutchman, and then just the ships arriving for Shipwreck Cove, and just today and tonight, and then Brethren Court just gathered together with the congregated. Even that for about all this is concerned about pirates that make the battle from the Marta for this today, this morning and afternoon. All this entire 300 ships is, including Flying Dutchmen's, almost about 300, more than about 297 ships, even that against by pirates. Even that Teodoma was a human form was free to guard human form, to guard his human form, and he just made it about the whirlpools. He has the maelstroms. She made it the thunderous storms, like God did for God of the seas did that for Poseidon, God of thunder. So the Pearl charges off and against the Dutchman and the maelstroms and sails around through the seas, and he just twisters and underwater before the earth together, and then all this about concern about last 20 minutes ago for the battle for the maelstroms. Just all the things about matters. That could be ended for about the last battle for EITC between Pearl and the Dutchman against the Endeavors. He just almost about exploded them, blown up from the water, and he just victory. They were disbanded to the EITCs, and then certainly Pirates victory over EITCs for the Armada ships. And Elizabeth was left to go for about return to the Jamaica and the lightship for the lighthouse. And he just stranded to the Tortuga, just like after Will Turner's replacing Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman. And Barbosa was sail. He stole the Jack ships in the Black Pearl, and ended up full of hole. So Jack was taken to Aqua de Vida, and during the end of the third movie, that could be it. So quotes and hobbies number 7. We're just doing the storylines, the combination about blowing this up below. So, however, this time, and since my aunts and my cousin, we just headed for Oregon for Benny's birthday. He was about since it's every year, since every April from 2008, 2009, 2010, and 2011, and even sometimes 3 years ago, since the bio was about elementary schools and junior high schools and freshman years. That meantime, there could be about the whole entire 2 days or 2 days away for about junior high schools and junior high schools and any time since the bio was about Oregon. My aunt visited for about last Friday ago. I'm about to ready to go for the Oregon to spend a night for 2 days. I usually have for my her former dog was competitions completion about her amenities, and do have about clothes dryers. They have to pay for the quarters for about the quarters and 25 cents. They do have about some amenities through the games and fitness room for the gym room. Even the swimming they can do, since my cousin Ashley, Erica, they can't be do. So I usually hang out for about 2 or 3 weeks before 4th of July. So I usually hang out for the outdoor movie theaters. So outdoor movie theaters are pretty good in it. Ice Age 3, Dawn of Dinosaurs, was completely good. So and that's a pretty good movie. Really excellent, perfect. So we are in quotes number 8. We are in quotes of hobbies number 8. I usually have a first time ever since I used about first time about Washington D.C.'s all about 1 week ago. They do have observation for about. We just fly back to the Travis Air Base to drive to the Oregon from C-17 to California, from California to Oregon to Columbia River, crossing the river from my uncles, and back to the Washington, and drive to the McCord to here and the home. I used to have for 10-day vacations. I usually have about 3-day roll calls for about McCord Air Base. We're just having to go we're just going to go straight to my aunt's sometimes to Sacramento, California. So 3 days to do have Travis Air Base. 3-day roll calls. 72 hours just about, and video competition issues. We're just having about the great times issues. We're just doing about for now, right now, in this time, at this moment. We're just gonna do that for about the whole opportunity for any time as soon as possible. For my response, mine is about responsible for this actions for since my dad, Frankie Bella, having a great time today for about Washington D.C. We're just gonna have to talk about this. So the tour of Thomas Jefferson's and Abraham Lincoln's and even the George Washington, it can be due. The White House, it should be about the tour White House. Just about President's White House, just about Barack Obama, and I seen him before. I was about C-17 for the air flights. C-17s are pretty good, and kind of like it. I like it for about 2009 for 14 years. That's a pretty good fun, hasn't it? So, alright guys, so we are going to do this for about, make way for about part 3. Make sure and don't forget, I'll be right back to about couple minutes. Be soon.